everyone, my name is Dana Storker,
And I'm Jess Cooper.
and we're excited to present our final project on enhancing visitor experience in the Santa Monica Mountains recreation area. Our team consists of 8 undergraduate environmental science majors and our advisor, Andy Klein-Heisenlink. We all have a wide range of concentrations and skills, so we delegated roles accordingly. You can see our team up there. The Grateful Bench is our nonprofit community partner who contracted our team to support their mission of enhancing visitor experience in the Santa Monica Mountains. They are supported by the Mountain Recreation Conservation Authority, who manages and preserves open space in Southern California. These efforts would not be possible without the Anthony Pritzker Family Foundation, whose funding is truly helping advance environmental sustainability throughout Los Angeles. The Santa Monica Mountains is one of the most biodiverse regions in California, with over 370 trails to explore. They are home to over 1,000 plant species, 45 mammal species, and 395 species of birds. Because of their close proximity to Los Angeles, these mountains attract over 760,000 visitors annually, making it one of the most visited natural areas in California. These mountains are a biodiversity hub. They are extremely popular and they are incredibly beautiful. However, one thing that they have lacked is a place to pause to truly slow down and connect with the surrounding environment. So that's where Grateful Bench comes in. This initiative installs benches at scenic overlooks to give visitors space to rest, reflect, and truly slow down to connect with nature. So far, 20 benches have been installed stretching from Leo Carrillo State Park to local trails here in West LA. Right now, these benches offer a place to sit, but they have the potential to become gateways for learning. To unlock that learning potential, Grateful Bench's vision was to attach QR codes to each bench, linking directly to the Grateful Bench website. These QR codes would give visitors access to hyperlocal information on geology, ecology, fire history, and natural history, turning a place to rest into an opportunity for deeper environmental education. To make this vision a reality, we focused on 3 core research goals. Our first goal was to analyze trail use and visitor interaction. We wanted to understand who was using the trails, how often they visit, and what they were interested in. This helped us identify which features would actually enhance their visitor experience. Second, we assessed cell coverage at each of the bench locations. Since QR codes rely on internet access, we wanted to measure the cell signal to determine where digital tools could realistically be used by visitors. Finally, we developed interpretive digital content. Our goal was to give visitors access to hyperlocal content to deepen their understanding of the natural environment around each bench. With these goals in mind, we developed a multi-step research process. We hiked to 13 Grateful Bench locations and measured the cell signal strength for 3 major providers, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon. At each site, we recorded both cell signal strength and download speed. Next, we developed online visitor surveys and linked them to QR code flyers that we attached at 10 Grateful Bench locations. These flyers were left up for a month. To supplement this digital data, we conducted in-person visitor counts over 2 consecutive weekends with the help of volunteers working 4-hour shifts. During these counts, we tallied hikers, bikers, and dogs across 14 trailheads. We also utilized trail activity data from platforms like Strava and AllTrails, which track user movement and trail popularity to compare against our own observations. Finally, we developed interpretive content by launching a biodiversity project on a site called iNaturalist. We used the bench coordinates to identify nearby species of plants, animals, insects, and fungi. We then combined this with GIS mapping and existing ecological databases to gather trail-specific information on geology, vegetation, fire history, and natural history for each bench location.
These 2 graphs show the results from our cell signal assessments. The graph on the left is cell service strength, and then the graph on the right is the average download speed. Overall, all of the bench locations had good to great connectivity, with only 1 bench showing poor cell service strength and 2 benches showing poor download speed. We're hoping that this information helps inform the Grateful Bench where QR codes may not be as effective, allowing them to avoid placing digital content at sites with poor connectivity. These are the results from our 2 days of in-person surveying. In total, we counted 1,335 walkers, 103 bikers, and nearly 155 dogs. Unfortunately, our first surveying day happened to take place on the only rainy day in Los Angeles, which likely reduced overall counts. But despite this, we are still able to evaluate the trails and gather enough data to find the most popular trails were Victory Knoll, Mill Peak Trail, and Willacre. We also found that this data correlated closely with the data we extracted from Strava, making it a useful proxy for estimating trail use and bench vegetation. Our visitor surveys also provided us with key insights into who the visitors were, what they wanted to learn about, and how they interacted with the benches. For instance, we found that around 35% of people were first-time visitors, and over 60% lived in nearby communities of less than 10 miles away from the trailhead. Additionally, each location received a bench usefulness rating of at least 9. People said the benches were generally accessible and that they wanted to learn more about natural and cultural history in the area. To support the visitors' interest in learning more about things like biodiversity, we launched an iNaturalist project where visitors can upload pictures of things like plants, animals, and fungi that can be identified and then curated into these locations you see here. For each bench location, we first inputted the coordinates and then drew a 500-meter perimeter around each one. And now when visitors snap photos, they can be automatically added to the project and then ID'd by naturalists, creating a dynamic biodiversity record. These are examples of information that we curated for the Grateful Bench. For instance, at the Victory Knoll bench, visitors can learn about plants like the wishbone bush, the Kenneth fire, animals like Bear's metal-marked butterfly, and geology such as the Modella Formation that includes fossilized fish from over 12 million years ago. In all, we found that visitors loved the trails and benches and found them useful. They wanted to learn more about local and cultural history at each of the bench locations, and we found sufficient cell coverage at each of the benches to make this happen. Finally, we found that the Strava data we had extracted aligns close with actual trail use, making it a useful proxy for trail popularity and thus future bench installations. In all, we believe that with a few key additions, these grateful benches can be transformed into not just areas for resting, but a way to create more meaningful environmental education. Thank you. You're also welcome to join our iNaturalist project and see what we've done.
Any questions from the audience? I see one over on the side, yeah.
Fires that affect those areas affect the data that you guys collect?
That's an excellent question. Yeah, there was a lot of uncertainty in the beginning of our project due to all of the fires. There was a couple of benches in the burn areas, and in general, we're kind of assuming that trail use is probably not as high as it would normally be. Even trails that are open, people might not know that they're open. And even when people are traveling through, people are less likely to go to trails that are in like burnt environments. And so we're still kind of assessing how that'll affect it in the future. Unfortunately, due to the fires, a lot of the resources and partners that we are working with, such as like the MRCA, we're much busier and obviously dealing with the immediate after effects of the fires. So it might take some time in order for something like this to become more of like a forefront priority.
Other questions?
I had a somehow related question about the fires, but more about the group. How did you guys react when you started seeing the fires in the place where you were doing research? How does that, like, doing research is also about like how we feel about the stuff that we work on, right? So I was just wondering how you guys felt navigating all these months of fires and post-fires events.
I mean,
Right here.
yeah. For me, from my experience, we had just been assigned our projects that we were doing. I'm also not from California, so I'm not familiar with wildfires at all. I'm from North Carolina, so it was pretty shocking to see something like this, so with such huge effects happening so close to home. And I did definitely realize pretty immediately, oh, that's the place that we were supposed to be doing research in a couple of weeks. So I knew, and I'm sure my other group members kind of knew pretty quickly that we were gonna be kind of rerouting what we were doing. Thankfully, we were still able to do some pretty substantial research, but that was my reaction.
We also knew that Mediterranean biomes were meant to burn and regrow. So I kind of had trust in the environment that it would be okay.
And I think also, Sebastian, thank you for the question. I think this is such a phenomenal example of the resiliency of science generally, that is uncertain and subject to changing conditions and all sorts of curveballs and hurdles that can get thrown in, and also of our student teams who really, there wasn't panic, there wasn't this effort to give up and sort of, well, now we just can't do the project. It was very much an immediate pivot to, all right, what are we gonna do instead? How are we gonna address this? And I think the work you've done really reflects sort of how quickly you recovered and were able to sort of transition your project into a different area. Thank you, team. That was wonderful.